Good evening, YouTube. Thank you for joining. So, to expound on last night's little tease of an update, here it is. I've decided to start a nonprofit, a 501c3 called No Reservations. The mission for this nonprofit is going to be to help, yes, but also to raise awareness and bring the culture out more. I want to break down a wall that I feel like has always existed between reservations and the rest of the country. I want to show the rest of the country as many stories as I can, as much history as I can, as much of the culture as I can. So to do this, I'm going to be traveling to different reservations and talking to anyone and everyone I can, from tribal leaders, spiritual leaders, business owners, kids, families, and get their stories, and not just. I don't want to focus strictly on the troubles. I do want to help where we can and do as much as we can. Start small. So if it's, little examples I've thought of is, if we go and we get to the reservation and we find this family, is working really hard, doesn't have a reliable vehicle, maybe we can help out with that. If there's a school that needs some work, maybe we can raise the money and try to get some renovations on a school. Start small, little bits here and there. But like I said, I don't want it to be. I never want it to be seen as a charity out of pity. I never want to put a video out like I used to see those when I was younger. The starving African children, and they would just tear at your heartstrings. These horrible, sad videos of these skinny, scrawny kids covered in flies, and the goal behind those, and they work. But the goal behind those is to make you feel guilty, so you go, "Oh man, that's so sad. I've got to give them some money." I don't want it to be that. I want it to be a celebration of the culture, a celebration of the history. I want to talk to the people in their reservations about, yes, what troubles, the struggles they go through, but also the ways they're trying to keep culture alive, traditions alive. I know there's some tribes who their language is slowly disappearing. Younger generations haven't been learning it as much, and I've always felt a fondness and a respect, a huge respect for the indigenous community from the time I was a kid. From the books I read, from documentaries and stories, and people I've met and known in my life. And this is something that I've been thinking about and tossing around for years, and I didn't know the best way to do it or how much of a difference I could make. And I kind of tossed around the idea of saying, okay, well, do we focus in on, suicide is astronomically higher on reservations than it is in the rest of the country. Missing persons, that's largely ignored. Drug use, gang violence, all these different issues on reservations. Okay, well, should I zero in on one? Or, how do I help? How can I do this? Where do I go? Where do I start? So I started kind of narrowing it down, and I think the best way to do it is to use this platform, use this media that's available now, and then start the nonprofit to raise money and help where we can. Go around and tell stories. And if it's small steps, baby steps here and there that we can help, then so be it. But as long as we start getting some stories out and getting some of the culture out in the world a little bit more, do our part. I think if we work together on this, me, you, anyone who wants to join this journey with me, I'm really looking forward to it. I am so excited. I'm super passionate about this. I feel like, kind of divulge for a moment here, I feel like our country is very narrow-tracked, narrow-minded at times as well. But we only have the capacity to focus on one thing at a time. And if you're not focused on that one thing, if you bring up something else, then you must hate what's going on. So the last few years, there's been a lot more media attention, a lot more light shed on the inequities in Black communities, which is great. Like, I fully support that being brought out in the light. It's great. And I don't want to put anything against that. But we've had conversations. I'm 40 years old. We've had conversations in my lifetime that I've seen, big national news, media coverage, big stories, big conversations about the Hispanic community and immigration, about the Black community, about Asian community, Asian American community, and all totally valid. But I don't think we could only focus on one thing at a time. And the common thread for me, at least in my 40 years, has been the one community that's always ignored and never gets those that kind of coverage, that kind of attention, other than a little blurb here and there, is the indigenous community. So anything we can do to help bring that to light and maybe help a few people out along the way is the goal. So what I've done is I've started a GoFundMe to help with the filing fees for the 50c3. I'm going to put the link down here. If you can give something, great. If not, please at least share it on your social media platforms. Try to get the word out. I'm using a company to do the 501c3 because it's a lot faster. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's faster and they have a guaranteed approval, and it's a headache of a process that can take 9 months, 10 months without all the COVID delays we've been dealing with in government. So I'm not looking forward to waiting, 12 months or 15 months to try to get this up and running. So I want to get it cranking. So I'm going to put the link down in the first comment for the GoFundMe page. Any comments, suggestions, concerns you have about this, by all means comment on here. I did add an email for contact on my YouTube channel here, so you should be able to find that. If you don't want to put it on public, if you want to send me a private email, that's fine. And then eventually what we'll do is start another channel dedicated specifically for the nonprofit, and we'll start collecting interviews, doing some kind of documentary type projects, and going one reservation at a time. I'm still finalizing and tweaking the full mission statement of the nonprofit of No Reservations. But kind of where I'm leaning is, and yes, you can make fun of me, it may sound a little cheesy, but my what kind of keeps rattling around in my head is one family, one community, one res, one world. And kind of the thinking behind that is, if we can help one family at a time, tell one family story at a time, and then maybe help a community, and then maybe help the reservation, and start bringing those reservation stories, those community stories out into the public, into the rest of society, so that it's not a forgotten population, so it's not forgotten stories, because it shouldn't be solely on the Native community to remember their history, to remember their stories, to remember their culture. It should be something that all of us are passing down to our families, passing down to our children. The history of the United States isn't written without Native Americans. Please join me on this journey. I'm really excited. Thank you all so much. Some of the recommendations I've done obviously a lot of Native American hip hop lately, and some of that kind of started pushing me over the edge a little bit. You're like, thinking about it more and more and going, okay, I need to focus and see, what do I want to do? How do I go about doing it? What's the best way? So I've already been talking to people and got some good contacts for different reservations and stuff. So it's gonna be a while before we get cranking on the actual visits, but I'd like to really focus in on it and get going. So anything y'all have, please comment below or send me an email. And I appreciate you greatly, and I'm looking forward to this. I'm so excited. I can't tell you how just excited and how passionate I am about this. I'm really ready to go. So thank you. Have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you later.